Yes.
Councilmember Rodriguez, can you hear me well?
Yes.
Councilmember Fernandez, can you hear me well?
Yes.
Thank you. I will now ask each of you except Mayor Pro Tem Stallard if you have an agenda. So Councilmember Barajas, do you have a copy of the agenda?
Yes, I do.
Councilmember Rodriguez?
Yes, I do.
Councilmember Fernandez?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Madam Clerk, a question for you. Have you posted the agenda at a location reasonably accessible to the public?
Yes, I have.
Thank you. The record should reflect that all council members are present for this teleconference and have indicated that they are able to hear the proceedings. At this time, I'm requesting that other city officials introduce themselves and their positions so that the record can reflect their attendance, starting with our city manager, Ken Hyatt.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Ken Hyatt, city manager, is present.
Mr. Walsh, this is your turn.
Oh, thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Ethan Walsh, interim city attorney, and I am present as well.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. This is Ana Gonzalez, city clerk.
Mayor, also present on the call is Derek Kapp, police chief, Eric Zane, our fire chief, Christine Engel, community services director, Craig Locke, public works director, Brent Meyer, acting community development director, Kim McKinney, our finance officer, as well as Scott Sowen, our IT manager.
Thank you, city manager. Now, as we go to the agenda, I would request that before speaking, you should identify yourself each time you speak. For example, this is Councilmember Fernandez, etc. Let the individual speak and please do not interrupt them. I would also ask, to the greatest extent possible, you should mute your phones or your devices so we do not get unnecessary background noise. I would now like to advise all council members and the city clerk that any votes taken tonight during this teleconference of this meeting must be taken by roll call. I would ask Madam Clerk to take that roll call for any and all votes tonight. Now, before we begin the rest of the agenda, let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to ask Councilmember Barajas to lead us in the pledge.
Salute. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember Barajas. We're now going to move to item F, which is public comment. Madam Clerk, since the council chambers are closed to the public, is there any member of the public who has submitted an email or left a voicemail for this general public comment portion of our meeting? If so, please let us know.
Mayor Landsberg, I do have a voicemail message, but it pertains to the public hearing item, so we can play it at that time.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other voicemails for this period?
No.
Are there any hands raised?
I do not see any.
Thank you. We're now going to go to item G, council and staff statements. I'm going to start with Councilmember Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Not much to report on my end. I just do want to speak to the conversation briefly that we had last meeting on the potential appointment of the Council District 3 seat in the future. And I have to say, I had a conversation with some community members, and I kind of took a step back in that I know on my end, we're looking, we're living under COVID and there's so much going on, and having conversations about the future of our council. I realized that, I think that we're all going to be best served in letting the community voice for themselves who they'd like to have them serve in the future. And I think I've relayed to at least one of my colleagues, I'd like to support the future of a special election for Council District 3 to support the ultimate form of transparency there. Otherwise, I'd like to thank some community members out there who have been sending me their concerns by email. If I haven't gotten back to you to this date, know that I have glanced at your email, and it's just taken me a little more time to get back to you, and I appreciate your comments and your thoughts. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Rodriguez. Councilmember Barajas. You're muted.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Mayor Landsberg. Yes, I just wanted to thank you, Mayor, and also the city staff, council members and community members for doing the community cleanup day over in Woodland. We did pick up a lot of trash and clean up our beautiful city of Woodland. And it was possible because of your leadership, and also for the community and staff was able to come out there and spend a good chunk of their Saturday on the weekend to really clean up by the train tracks on East Main and East Street. And it was great. There was over, I would estimate 150 to 200 people. So it just showed the community coming together and making sure that they cleaned up for the city. So that was great to see. And that really concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Barajas. Councilmember Fernandez.
Thank you, Mayor Landsberg. I've got nothing significant I want to report, but like Councilmember Barajas, I do want to commend you on organizing the service event that you organized. You know, as much as I wanted to be out there, I'm sorry that I wasn't able to make it. You know, I can't control my back, but it was on the fritz. But I appreciate your leadership, and I hope the citizens of Woodland recognize your wholesome and genuine leadership and your commitment to being a true public steward.
Thank you, Councilman Fernandez. You're too kind. I hope your back gets better. Mayor Pro Tem Tom Stellard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not too much to report. I certainly join my colleagues in commending you and our Community Services Department for the fine and well-organized cleanup day. Things like that, I think all of us realize who were there. Not only do we accomplish some civic good, but we also have a good time doing it. And it's a really good community experience. We had, well, older people there and kids and everybody working hard and getting an important job done. I also want to mention that thanks to moving from purple to red, you know, one of the benefits is that our wonderful 10-screen State Theater, it's now permitted to reopen under limitations, but it can reopen. And the latest as of today is that opening should occur sometime early in November. There had been a hope that it would happen sooner, but ordering movies and everything like that is more complicated than even the people who do it thought. And so we're hoping to get some volunteers together to get inside that theater, those theaters, and dust down the chairs in all 10 theaters. Anyone interested in doing so, I'd like to hear from them. If we'd like to get a group of at least a dozen people to go in and help them with that. In the last 2 days, the entire exterior of the theater has been high pressure cleaned, and that was also donated. So anyway, we're happy to have our beautiful restored State Theater back in service to our community. I think that'll do it for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Stallard. I too cannot let this night go by without taking the time to thank the well over 100 volunteers who showed up on September 19th for the cleanup of the East Main Street area. We had such a community spirit going. It was fun to see little kids from 4 years old, 5 years old, all the way to way up into senior citizens. The comments I got were that this was great. They were tired, but they felt good being tired. Let's keep that spirit going. I also wish to thank the sponsors that we had: Dutch Brothers, Crackliolas, Skate or Die, and the good cookies at Stirred Not Shaken. But I too want to thank and recognize Christine Engel and her Community Services Department for taking the lead on this program. They did a great job, and I'm very proud of your staff, Christine, and I'm very proud of our community. In tonight's consent calendar is item number 7, which is a proclamation for Fire Prevention Week. And who would have known that during this week, a fire would claim the home of a local businessman, Tim and Kathy Johnson, who owned Johnson's Bakery on Main Street. First, the pandemic caused the cancellation of many of their wedding cakes and hurt them financially. And now a terrible fire has taken their home. As a community, we need to come together to keep this family afloat, this business afloat. I know the community has already started doing great things for this family, and we continue to keep the Johnson family in our minds and help them out as best we can to survive not only the pandemic and the effect it's had on their business, but now that they've lost their home. Let's do what we can to help them out.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Lastly, I think it's important to remind everyone that in just about 27 days, we have a national election as well as some local issues here. Well, encouraging all people to vote early, take advantage of the voting opportunities that Mr. Salinas has set up. We're going to hear from him in a few minutes, but I'm encouraging everyone that can vote to vote. And now I'm going to turn it over to our city manager for his comments. Mr. Hyatt.
You're muted, Ken.
There we go. Sorry about that. Yeah, just a couple quick updates for the council this evening. First, relative to COVID, our transition into the tier 2 substantial column is going fairly smoothly. So far, so good. We have not found businesses out of compliance, and our numbers also continue to track fairly well. In fact, in conversations with the county last week, if things hold the way they are, we may even be in a position to move into the next tier, tier 3, within a week and a half from now. So continue to encourage folks to not lose diligence in their good practices that they've learned, but the restaurants, the retailers, the theaters, as Tom mentioned, as well as places of worship, are now allowed to operate, at least in limited capacity, indoors now, which is a good sort of psychological as well as financial impact for our businesses as well as community. I've also been in contact with the school district. The superintendent this morning indicated that the board of trustees will be bringing up their meeting this week the matter of how they will transition as the community continues to progress through the tiers, albeit on an entirely different schedule, back to some limited in-person instruction. And superintendent represented that it's likely to happen very slowly, but by as early as November, there may be some limited in-class instruction for some students, but likely not until January will we see large numbers of students begin to come back to campus and do their instruction that way. They did encourage, right, as the community does open back up, in thinking about our students, if we do regress in any way in our numbers, it will delay their ability to open up the instruction. So all the more reason for us to continue to message to our community members the importance to practice social distancing and masking and hand washing and whatnot. And then lastly, I will report that the Sports Park Turf Replacement Project, which the council approved earlier this fall, has now started construction. So the 5 turf fields at the Community Senior Center are now being removed, and ultimately the turf replaced by the end of the year is what the current contract calls for. So looking forward to having those fields back open in time for activities to resume early next year. So timing actually worked out well for that project to occur. And the funding for that, again, was 100% Measure EF sales tax, affording us to help pay for that project. So with that, I will turn quickly to the long range calendar. October 20th will be the next regular meeting of the City Council. Currently on the long range, a couple important items to highlight. First of all, We've asked Waste Management, our waste provider here in town, to come to the council and present both the council and the community their proposed smart truck program for residential. So you may recall late last year, they rolled out a smart truck program for commercial and had to adapt given some of the concerns and feedback from our commercial customers. That I believe is settled out somewhat, but now they're looking at transitioning to applying that to the residential customers throughout the community. And given the importance of the matter and ultimately potential fines that could be applied to residential customers that are deemed in violation, felt it was appropriate to have Waste Management both present the requirements for us to begin to use technology in more sophisticated ways to ensure contamination is minimized in compliance with state requirements, but also to provide the council and the community what their program and strategy is to educate residents throughout the community what the requirements are so they can best comply and avoid citation. So that'll be, I think, a healthy conversation at the next meeting. We will also be hearing from Department of Water Resources. They will be presenting on Cache Creek capacity analysis that they have been conducting in response to a overtopping that happened several years ago, February, I believe, of 2019, where the overtopping of Cache Creek occurred much sooner than modeling had predicted. So they've been analyzing what is the cause of that reduced capacity in the Cache Creek river system north of our community, which, as we all know, is a very important project for us to pursue the flood protection. So important piece of information will be presented from DWR that will also be useful for us as we advance our flood protection project. And then lastly, traffic calming continues, of course, to be top of mind for residents throughout the community, and working with staff to bring back to council some recommendations to move forward with traffic calming on some of the streets, particularly West Street, Bartlett, Pendergast, and also looking at some other recent streets that we've received complaints from. So we'll be outlining recommendations to move forward with next phase of traffic calming implementation on those streets. And then November 3rd would be the next meeting normally. That is election night. And traditionally, the council has held meetings on election dates when they align with the first meeting of the month. However, those agendas are traditionally held very light. So at this point, as you can see in the long range, there's likely only to be a handful of items for the council to discuss that evening. So we will continue to keep that agenda light to ensure that we can adjourn early in the evening and not miss out on what everybody will be tracking that evening with the local and national elections. And then I do want to conclude on the long range. So December 1st currently shows the council reorganization, and the clerk's office has until, I believe, December 2nd to certify the election results. And so there is a likely potential that December 1st may not be a possibility for us to hold the council reorganization and swear in the new council members and say goodbye to those that will be leaving office. So I will be working with Mr. Salinas to get a better sense of what the timing is on the certification of the election results, and then come back to the council with maybe an alternative recommendation to hold potentially a special meeting for that reorg on a night after December 1st, but before the next meeting of the council. So that concludes my report, Mr. Mayor. I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Hyatt. And at this time, council members and Mr. Hyatt, I'm going to invite comment questions from council members on the November 3rd meeting. And it's probably three things that we can consider. One is to leave it as it is, a light agenda. Two would be to postpone it. Three would be just cancel it. So I'm going to invite council members to each speak up on those three possibilities. If you have a fourth one, let me know. But I'll start with this. I'm okay with just canceling the darn thing. We're going to have our mind on other topics that night, and since it's a light agenda, let's just cancel it. That's my thought. I'll invite comment from other members.
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilmember Rodriguez.
Please.
I agree that we opt not to have a council meeting on election day. I'm fine with moving it, or if it's a light agenda, moving those items to the following council meeting. I do know the city of Davis and West Sacramento are not holding meetings on that day, and so it would send a better message to the community if we either move that meeting or postpone. I'm fine with either. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would proceed. No results occur before 8 o'clock in the evening, so our meetings are usually concluded by then. So to me, as coming in the past, one of the reasons for having it is it just seems like there's some city contracts that have to get dealt with. If there's anything I would say that has to be dealt with, why not just go ahead and get it done and adjourn early? I mean, it's a brief meeting anyway. But if that's not the case, there's nothing that is time sensitive. It makes no difference to me what we do.
Thank you. Councilmember Barajas, do you have a comment or question?
I kind of agree with Councilmember Tom Stollard. If we need to have a meeting to approve some of the contracts or to continue business operations, then we should have a light agenda. If not, and that could wait, then I would say we should cancel.
Thank you. Hernandez?
Mr. Mayor, I'll generally defer to staff on this. I'll leave it in the hands of the city manager, like my colleagues. Although I would avoid having any robust public discussions that night.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I may add, this is Councilmember Rodriguez. If my colleagues are open to it, we could hold the meeting unless there's something that we can't put through that needs approval and needs to fall on a regular council meeting, that we potentially look at the 4th or the 5th for that meeting of November.
I wonder, Mr. Hyatt, if there could be a method of letting us know what those items would be, that we can make a decision at the next council meeting of the 20th. What is that? 20th? So we can make that decision about November 3rd.
Certainly, yeah. At this time, it appears there may only be one item that's time sensitive. That's a contract that we need council authority to proceed with. There's always a chance that that may slip anyways, but I think by the 20th, we'll have a better sense. So we can maybe be prepared by the 20th to make that decision.
All right. And I just wonder if this topic should be agendized for the next meeting and we'll just vote on it.
Yep, we'll make sure it's added to the agenda.
Thank you. Thank you, council members. Good discussion. We're going to move to item H, which is presentations. Item H3, we have as a guest, the distinguished Honorable Yolo County Clerk Recorder Assessor, Jesse Salinas. Welcome, Jesse. I'm sure that right now, these are probably the busiest days of your life.
Well, thank you, Mayor Landsberg and City Council members. It is a busy time. I'm sure you've probably seen a number of reports and other things that we're doing across the county and in the region, just trying to get the messaging out on this upcoming election. And it seems like every day it becomes more and more critical, just with all the challenges we've got going on with the pandemic and all the items that are flying around on this election. So thank you for the opportunity to come and present today. I think I do have an opportunity. Can I share my item for the presentation? Is that okay for everybody? Let me see if we can get this going here.
You can.
Fantastic. So can everybody see that?
Yes, Jesse, go ahead. Looks good.
Fantastic. Okay, well, thank you. Again, this is going to be a brief overview. I know you've got a lot on your agenda, and I'll try and keep it brief. There is a lot of changes happening, and I want to start off by, again, introducing myself, Jesse Salinas, the Yolo County Assessor, Clerk, Recorder, and Register of Voters. And what I'd like to share as well is the fact that what we have happening is a lot of changes taking place in this election, and I'll highlight that. But first, I want to be able to, let's see if this is actually moving over the way I would have liked. Let's see. Okay, having a little technical difficulty here. There you go. First of all, I wanted to thank your staff. They've been fantastic. I want to give a shout out to Anna Gonzalez and Jennifer Robinson. They have been just wonderful to work with. They've been proactive in helping us to address a number of issues. So it's just been great to have them involved with this project. And if you recall, we talked about partnering with the city on a number of items, and they've just been fantastic to work with. So again, shout out to the two of them and their leadership and this partnership that we've got going on with the city. So I want to highlight a couple of key changes that are happening. One is that every registered voter is going to receive a vote by mail ballot. Hopefully those of you who live in the county, and I'm sure almost all of you, I don't know how much staff are listening in that may live outside of the county, but folks who are living inside of the Yolo County are starting to receive their ballots today. I've gotten people contacting us, very excited that they're receiving their ballots today. So you should start to receive them in the next couple of days. In fact, I did a tour of the West Sacramento site yesterday to ensure that the ballots had been received and that they were processing them. So, but everybody, as part of new legislation, will receive a ballot in the mail this election as in response to COVID, to try and keep people as safe as possible and having that election option of the option of being able to vote by mail. In addition, with new legislation that's passed, we still need to provide in-person voting, and we've created these voter assistance centers. And your staff has been very helpful in helping to identify locations that we could use. And something that I'll touch upon in a few seconds here, but these voter assistance centers are going to take the place of traditional polling places. I want to emphasize that key point because it is a fundamental difference. And so that's critical for all the voters to understand. You will not have your traditional polling places like you've had in the past. These voter assistance centers that will be open over a 4-day period will be your other in-person options. So I'm going to just highlight some of the key